This is Frankie Lynch, Saturn Girl. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also comment below because I want to know what you think and it really helps out the algorithm. But I wanted to talk a little bit today about an important transit that's coming up in just a few days. On June 5th, Venus, our dear lady and my mama, will enter Leo, the solar sign. This is so cool. At least it is for me because I'm Aquarius rising and Leo's my seventh house. But what can we expect here with this wonderful little transit? Well, Venus is going to remain in Leo for a long time. She goes in just a few days and stays there till early October. You see, she's going to go retrograde, I think around July 22nd or so, and remain retrograde until early September. So we've got a wonderful double dose of Venus. Let's think about what this can mean for us here, shall we? So, no, number one, Venus is love and beauty, art, music, aesthetic, pleasure, enjoyment, women, feminine things, nice things, valuable things, and cleanliness. And what's Leo? Well, Leo is ruled by the sun and gets a lot of his meaning from the sun. For example, things like authority, rule, leadership, independence, being enterprising or ambitious, very Leonian. Well, how about Venus and Leo? There's a couple phrases I wrote down. Opulence, right? Splendor. In fact, there's this scene in The Great Gatsby, one of my favorite books, where Daisy, Gatsby's love interest, is just so impressed by all of his beautiful shirts. And the author, F. Scott Fitzgerald, refers to this as purposeless splendor. And to me, that's so Venus and Leo, purposeless splendor. You know, we also see things like showing off, very Venus and Leo. Look at me, right? Confidence. Now, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance, right? Arrogance just assumes that you're the best, while confidence knows through experience. But both things can be very Leonian. Now, class, right? Because, now not just class in terms of socioeconomic status, but the whole idea of being classy, right? Classy people. We also think of women in power. What was really interesting about this is Louis XIV, who was the King of France just before the French Revolution, actually before Louis XVI, who you might remember was, unalived during the French Revolution. Louis XIV is the one who commissioned the building of Versailles. Louis XIV was known as the Sun King. Versailles was basically drenched in gold. It was one of the most opulent, ostentatious, purposeless palaces in the world, at least at the time, and probably still now to a certain degree. Very, very Venus and Leo. Well, and Louis XIV had Venus and Leo. Who are some other famous people with Venus and Leo? Well, number one, Madonna. She's got one name, Madonna. You can't get more Leo than that, like Madonna, Beyonce. Michael Jackson, also Venus and Leo. And when I think of Venus and Leo, I think of being possessive also. I think of control freaks. And Michael Jackson was indeed a control freak. If you ever watch This Is It, right, which was the movie that it was all backstage, behind the scenes, preparation for his world tour. Unfortunately, he passed away before it could come to fruition. But all the backstage footage of all the rehearsals and everything else became a film. And it's a magnificent film, but it definitely highlights how much of a control freak Michael Jackson was over the music. Now, speaking of possessive, Tom Cruise, Venus and Leo. You might remember all the Katie Holmes drama where he was literally like possessing her. Also the Dalai Lama. Venus and Leo. There was a news story recently about a non-consensual kiss that he had with a non-adult person. I'm trying not to get in trouble with YouTube, but this was a very scandalous thing. Okay, this is not to be taken lightly. Oh, Marine Le Pen. For those of you who don't know, she's basically a French fascist politician. Venus and Leo. Surprise, surprise. She wants to control everyone and she has Venus and Leo. Also, speaking of control, George W. Bush, Venus and Leo. You might remember he said, if you're not with us, you're against us. We're going to get those terrorists. Now watch this drive. Now watch this drive. I love that. It's so funny. So, yeah, very Venus and Leo, isn't it? Well, let's talk about a few historical examples of what happened when we had Venus and Leo. Well, number one, this is an older one I picked. September 5th, 1793. Venus goes into Leo the day the Reign of Terror started during the French Revolution. For those of you who don't remember the Reign of Terror from history class, there was a radical party called the Jacobins who sort of seized control through what was called the Committee of Public Safety. And the whole thing is that they were fighting enemies of the revolution, but it sort of went off kilter. So there was a gentleman by the name of Maximilian Robespierre, a fellow Aquarius rising like me. He oversaw almost 17,000 people being put to the guillotine, over this effort to save the revolution. This was called exceptional revolutionary measures. So, and you'll see this in revolutionary movements historically since then as well, because typically revolutionary movements are facing opposition from both within and without. So, extraordinary revolutionary measures turned into what is now known as the Reign of Terror. September 18th, 1793, around the same time, George Washington lays the cornerstone for the U.S. Capitol building. And this is so important because George Washington was a Freemason. And it's so important, it's customary in Freemasonry to place the cornerstone, right? And of course, there was a Masonic ceremony around placing the cornerstone. This isn't secret stuff. You can find this anywhere on the internet, history, whatever. If you find stuff on the internet, please verify your sources, verify the information, look for other sources too, because I see so many people putting just nonsense bullshit they read online, and taking it for a fact. So anyway, but that's lovely. The U.S. Capitol building was laid during Venus and Leo. Now, a couple other historical events. July 18th, 1968, Intel was founded, right? The famous processor company. I picked that as sort of a Venus and Leo thing because it really is the beginning of a new industry, right? Intel propelled the whole central, CPU or central processing unit industry into a new realm, a new era, a new sense of importance. Of course, there are rivals like AMD or whatever, but Intel sort of proved itself to be sort of the leader of the industry. I'm not trying to be, I love AMD processors. I'm not trying to show any sort of preference or whatever. It's just quite interesting to me that the game-changing company was founded then during Venus and Leo. And then this is so cool. July 15th, 1994. The Lion King opens in theaters. How Leo is that? And of course, Venus is art and creativity and music. It was a wonderful film known for its music by Elton John, wasn't it? In fact, I saw Elton John in concert with my parents when I think I was 11 years old. And they did Lion King songs. It was so awesome. Of course, with the other songs too. Now, what does this mean for us generally? Well, we could see cool new movies or music releases. That's always something that happens. We could also see ostentatious displays of wealth and decadence, in the media, news, or whatever. And I'm sure we already have plenty of those going on. Like, it's so crappy to see these days. 60% of the United States is living paycheck to paycheck. And then we see these, decadent displays of opulence and everything else. And then those same people want to tell you, you got to work harder. And it's just funny. It's funny to me when they don't even work, They get dividends and returns on investment. So anyway, well, let's talk about some of my experience with Venus and Leo. Because I'm excited. I'm excited when Venus goes into my 7th house. And almost every time she does, I have some sort of romantic thing happen. So let's just mention one. So what is this? August 11th through September 4th of 2022. So this was the summer of this past year. I had a wonderful month with someone I love. I'm not going to go into detail, but we spent a lot of time together. We got to see each other a lot, and I got to visit with her. Anyway, it was right before I moved out of state to here, where I am now. Well, and then how about 2019? So from July 28th to August 21st, Venus was in Leo, and I met a new person, and I went to visit them, and it was all magical. And of course, I turned into a codependent, slobbery goofball, getting obsessed and all. But it was a very pivotal time, for me in my life. I learned a lot about myself through relationships, unfortunately. So, what else? Well, this is a great time to show off, as I said earlier. Put on your best. I want you to sparkle, right? Feel hot, right? Feel sexy. Put on clothes that make you feel like you're just oozing desire and attraction. Your time to enjoy your little moment in the sun, Leo. Now, this is not necessarily good for everyone, but I think it's mostly positive. I think of it as a time that we go out on a limb. If there's someone you've had a crush on forever, now's the time to get some courage and confidence and be like, yo, I'm hot shit. I can ask them out. And if they don't respond, or if they don't agree or they don't like it, then whatever, we got to move on. And that's also a Leo thing, isn't it? Like, okay, next one, please. Leo can get possessive of people, of course, but the same way they get possessive of a new car. I'm joking. Don't get all upset. I'm joking. So like I said, do things you wouldn't normally do. Tell people how you really feel. Have some courage. Get out of your comfort zone. This is a really good one because Venus and Leo is spontaneous. It's fun, right? It goes out on a whim to, go to a play or a show or a concert or a party. And like I said, yes, possessiveness and rivalry and all these sorts of things. Like when I think of Venus and Leo, I think of Tinkerbell and Peter Pan, where she's just staring daggers at Wendy and like her face is turning red and she's like, right? I always joke that if you have to break up with a Venus and Leo, you got to up and leave in the middle of the night. Just leave all your shit. You'll thank me later. I'm half kidding. But you feel me. The possessiveness. Don't look at my partner. That's mine. That's mine. That's my partner. Michael Jackson. So I've learned that love is not possession. So, well, let's talk about a few horoscopes here, shall we? So, number one. Number one. We'll start off with Aries rising here. Aries rising. So for Aries rising, Venus has just gone into your fifth house. This is so lovely. This is awesome. She's essentially making a trine by sign to your rising sign. Depending on your rising degree, she may even make a trine to your rising degree. I mean, she will at some point. But in your fifth house is lovely. Mars is there too. So you may be having fights with your children, right? And things like that. I mean, that often happens if you have children. If you don't, you will probably be extra horny. And if you are, Venus going through Leo will help that situation out, at least give you a better chance of getting lucky. And for you, Venus rules the second house and the seventh house. So this could be good romantic developments. You may see some positive effects to your finances, hopefully. But that all depends on the condition of Venus in your second house ruler in your chart. So, which is Venus. Now let's go on to Taurus rising. So for Taurus rising, Venus is going into your fourth house. Now, Mars is already there. This could cause fights and problems with your parents or landlords or people involved in your living situation, roommates, whatever. But Venus going through there after that is sort of picking up all those pieces. So whatever sort of conflicts you see with your living situation or your family, those should be ironed out pretty well as Venus is touring through the fourth house. Now let's go to Gemini. If you're a Gemini, that means Venus is going into your third house. Of course, Mars is already there, which can be fights with siblings or extended family. I think more, though, of car accidents and problems with your commutes and road rage. So please be careful. Please, please, please. And with Venus going in there, that should help out that situation. You may see yourself slowly calming down as Venus eases in and Mars is going out. So I also want you to use this time to perhaps, if you do any content creation or speaking and writing projects, this is a time to really put in the effort, because you might notice that you have a better skill at wordsmithing or making beautiful phrases or making art for that matter. But I think more of wordsmithing, writing, and speaking with the third house. Now let's move on to Cancer, which is the second house. So when Mars is going through your second house, you tend to spend a lot of money. And so I always tell people with Mars going through their second house to hide their credit cards from themselves. You really have to save up for a rainy day here because sudden things could happen that are expensive. Now, Venus going through here could help clean up your finances. Venus rules your 11th house and Venus rules your 4th house. So you could see friends and family help you out with your financial situation. Maybe your parents give you a loan. Maybe you take out some money on your house or whatever. But I see this as mostly good. It's just you really have to be careful with your spending. Venus can also be a bit decadent. So another indication of having to be careful. Now for our Leo rising friends, we have the first house being highlighted. And Venus rules your 10th house, which, gosh, is so auspicious, and your third. So Mars going through your first house can be difficult, right? We can get hurt. we can get little injuries, cuts and scrapes, and maybe a little bit accidents here and there. It can also drain our energy. We can get overly anxious or antagonistic. So with Venus going through here, this is a lovely balancing sort of quality, because Venus going through your first house is really the essence of showing off and wanting to sparkle. This is the time to go out and to be sort of a big deal, or at least feel like you're a big deal. Now let's go to Virgo rising. So for Virgo rising, Venus is going in to your 12th house. Now the 12th house is the worst house. Like, let's not mince words here. Let's not, dance around the bush or beat around, whatever the hell the phrase is. But the 12th house sucks. It's mental illness, it's self-undoing, it's addiction, it's imprisonment and isolation. So what does Venus do when she's going through here? Well, number one, Mars sucks going through here. It makes us quite agitated. If people try and help or make us be social or, want to get involved in some way, we get angry. we typically respond not very well. This is self-imposed seclusion. We want people to leave us alone. Leave me alone. But as Venus goes through here, she starts to clean some of that stuff up. We start to have more of a positive feeling about our sense of isolation here. It's only temporary. But it's a beneficial healing sort of thing. It's like a cocoon that we go into to process our metamorphosis into a little butterfly, a pretty butterfly. Now let's move on, y'all. Oh, well, sorry. Venus rules the 9th house. Venus also rules the 2nd house. So this might be a time where you shut yourself in to contemplate the big questions in life. You might find yourself being a metaphysician, being a bit more religious or spiritual or inwardly focused. Maybe all of a sudden you take up a new spiritual practice or a prayer routine, or I don't know, whatever it is, the fucking shit that you do. But whatever it is, it's something that connects you to something higher than yourself. Because the 12th house is self-undoing, but what self are we undoing? You see? Let's go to Libra rising. So Venus rules the 1st house, and she's gone into the 11th, which is very auspicious, right? This is a great time to go out and have fun, similar to the Leo rising, because I like this. It's your 1st house ruler, Venus, that went into the 11th house. With Mars there, you may have been having fights with friends, so you got to pick your words carefully. You don't want to say things that end up alienating you from your allies, because this day and age, allies are very, very important, aren't they? So Venus also rules the 8th house. So some friends might owe you money. I think we talked about that a little bit earlier, but friends could owe you money. Or maybe ask you for money. So that's also a thing. Or maybe you need a loan or you need help and you ask friends for money. So it doesn't have to be that, but that's sort of the common thing I see. Now, Scorpio rising. For Scorpio rising, Venus rules the 7th house and the 12th house. So, excuse me, with Venus going into your 10th house, this definitely is a very interesting thing because the 10th house is where you're most prominent. It's your life direction, your recognition, your honors. Oftentimes it's your career because it's what's most visible about you. So with Venus going in here and ruling your 7th house, you could have a high profile romantic love interest that comes into your life. You may have a coworker that you get involved with. You may be attracted to a boss. With Mars going through your 10th house, we often have conflicts with our bosses or leaders or whoever, but with authority. Now, when Venus goes through here, you might see those conflicts get better, or you might see a female boss come into the picture, or a woman boss, I'm always really suspicious of people who call women females. I think it's really disgusting. So anyway, but a personal opinion and preference is just that you see a certain type of person do that sort of objectifies that. Anyway, I'm getting political again. I need to stop. So for Scorpio rising, I really like this because it is a very prominent transit for you. It's angular, the 10th house, and it's the 7th house ruler. So I do expect, And not necessarily anything extraordinary, but maybe you do see improvements at work. Maybe you do change your life direction. Maybe you find something else that you're interested in. Maybe you find a new job, quit a job you hate, get a promotion, get a raise. I don't know, but keep your eye out for positive developments around your life direction and your work. Now we're moving on to Sagittarius rising. So for Sag, Venus is going into your ninth house, right? And Venus also rules your sixth and your 11th houses. So now I like this for my Sag friends because Sag is sort of a philosophical sign already. And when Venus is going through your ninth house, well, with Mars going through your ninth house, you're going to be very idealistic. You're going to be very enthusiastic about what you believe, and you might even be a bit of a fanatic. Watch getting involved in political or religious arguments because it won't go well and you will get very heated. But as Venus goes in here, Venus is also harmonizing all those sorts of things. Maybe you find a new mentor, probably a woman, or maybe you find a new teaching or spiritual philosophy you're interested in, or philosophy in general. This is a wonderful time to learn new things, to penetrate into the unknown, and achieve a new understanding. Very interesting. Now watch, of course, because it rules your sixth house. Watch the enemies and fights thing. Like I said, you don't want to get into arguments that are going to cause bigger problems later because people get very identified with what they believe, myself included, and they take it very personally when you challenge it. So, well, let's move on to Capricorn rising, shall we? Capricorn rising, that means Venus is moving into your 8th house. Venus rules your 10th and your 5th. So, even though the 8th house is still sort of difficult, I still like this. Well, number one, Mars going through your 8th house can lead to big expenses or unexpected expenses. Typically where you have to put things on credit or take out a loan or taxes. It's usually a loss that comes out of nowhere very fast. So, but with Venus going through here, she may be cleaning up or helping mitigate whatever that circumstance is that causes a problem. I think of big ticket items that need to be replaced, like a car, right? Or something else expensive. I mean, cars up kind of the high end of that. But having to replace these items, oftentimes by going on credit or taking out a loan. So, but I would expect this to be a positive thing. It ends up being more positive. Maybe you do have to spend more than you wanted to, but you get the car you want. I mean, we all have to be careful with money right now. We all do. So, how about Aquarius rising? This is me. Look at me, look at me. I am Aqua rising, and this is my 7th house. So for my fellow Aqua risings, you better get the fuck out there and better start meeting people. And I want you to start having sex, of course, because, I mean, if you're not already. So, because this is a wonderful time. You see, Venus is going through our 7th house until October, and she rules the 4th house and the 9th house. So we may be attracted to people who, share our spiritual understanding or our political values or our philosophical ideas, but we'll be attracted to those kind of, dare I say, Sagittarian, Jupiterian sort of people. I love Sages anyway, and Leos. Oh my God. Don't get me started. So, well, let's move on to my dear Aquarius risings. I hope you don't think that I'm like glossing over this too quickly, but we probably have the best, in my opinion, we have one of the best possible circumstances here, Aquarius risings do. Although we tend to be ice queens and sort of like removed from everything, so we have to learn to get close and to allow people to get close. So for those of us who have Cancer Venus or Cancer Moon or whatever placements, we have an easier time. Now let's talk about Pisces rising before we go. So for Pisces rising, that means Venus is going into your 6th house. She rules your 8th, and she also rules your 3rd. So this could be fights with siblings or extended family, or one of them could get sick. Okay? So just watch out here. Now, on the other hand, if someone has been sick, they could get well. Venus does help the situation. Maybe your own health has been in dire straits or not doing so well. Maybe you've been sick. Maybe you got hurt or got an injury. But Venus going through here helps to heal those things, helps to clean that up. I keep saying clean it up. It's like I got to learn a new phrase here. But improving the situation of this house, which has to do with your health, with injuries, illnesses, and the drudgery of wage slavery. So you might see your job situation improve a little bit if it was really getting to you. If a certain person, right, because the 6th house is enemies, if a certain person was talking shit behind your back or, starting drama or gossip around you, they may expose themselves and other people might side with you. Not like, we should be so concerned with, people being on our side. But you may get some luck out of it. If it's a difficult situation, there will be a silver lining. Okay? Now, with Venus ruling the 8th house, just be careful that there's no illegal stuff going on, or you may just be afraid of the situation. The fear of it may be either, hampering you in some way, or making you hesitant, arresting your progress, right? We need courage to press on. And remember what happens when we look back. You might remember the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot and his wife. And Lot's wife looks back. She was told not to look back, and she turns into a pillar of salt. We should be pressing on, eyes fixed on the goal ahead, on the future, on understanding the unknown, on penetrating into things that we've never understood before. So I hope this was helpful. Venus in Leo is a really important thing. I mean, I think it is, and I'm really excited about it. So I hope you are too. Like I said, it's not wonderful for everyone. It depends on particular things in your chart. And you can always get a reading from me because I do the best readings. It's scientifically proven. It's objectively factual, according to me. So anyway, I love you very much. Please like the video, subscribe to my channel, comment below. I want to know what your experiences are with all this sort of stuff. And I love you very much. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. And please, please, please have a wonderful whatever you're having. And now it's time to end the transmission.